Hey everybody, it's that time of year again. It's time to winterize our camper. It's mid-October, temps are starting to drop. This is my least favorite time of the whole year, but it's here. And so I'm going to make a quick instructional video to try to help people that want to winterize their camper but may not be familiar with the process. It's very easy. I'm going to show you how I do it on my Keystone Bullet 274 BHS. Your model may have stuff in a slightly different location, but the concept is exactly the same. So we'll help you identify the parts you need to know about and then what the process is. And I think you'll find by the time this video is over that it's something that's easily done by anyone who's even moderately handy. So let's first start with identifying the components that are important to do this job on your camper. A lot of people ask, you know, I don't know where the hot water tank is, so I can't flush it. I can't turn the bypass valve because I have no idea where my hot water tank is, or where are my low point drains, etc., etc. So let's start by identifying the components you need to do this job first. Right here on my camper is my hot water tank access panel for the outside. Mine happens to be right under the awning. Yours might be on the back side or on the other side where the slide is. It's going to vary depending on your model. The key is wherever this guy is on the outside of your camper is where your hot water tank is on the inside. So right inside my camper, from where this is on the outside, is the stove. So I know that my hot water tank and my bypass valve are going to be right under that stove. They're behind an access panel I got to remove with a couple screws, but that's where it is. If yours were, say, back here, like under the bunk window or something, you know that it's probably under your lower bunk. You're going to have to pull the mattress off, pull the bunk board off, and it should be right there. You know, or some other, under a bench, under another cabinet if you have a rear kitchen. In any case, we're going to be right inside from wherever this guy is. So this is critical. Knowing where this is going to be a big help. On mine, the other thing I need to pay attention to are the low point drains, which are right there, red and blue. They should be red and blue on all campers. They're probably in a little different location depending on where yours is, but you shouldn't have too much of a trouble locating those. You're going to want to spin those caps off of those guys, and while they're draining, you want to come over to the tank. I'm assuming that your camper is off, it's not hot or anything like that. You want to just crack this valve up to its upward position. What that's going to allow it to do is going to allow all the water to come out of your hot water tank. Simply opening a faucet on the inside or whatever will not completely empty these Atwood tanks. You have to let air in through this overpressure valve. That's the only way. There's actually a check valve on top of the tank that prevents air from coming back in by simply opening a faucet. So crack this. When all the water stops running out of the low point drains, go ahead and put the caps back on. Don't forget to do that, or your antifreeze is just going to run straight onto the ground as you pump it through the system. And of course, you're going to want to remember to flip that back down. Some people will also take and remove their nylon plug. That's another way you can drain the tank. I find it makes a giant mess because it all splashes out through here. Personal preference, I find that once I've drained the tank through the low point, even if I remove this, I don't get any water out. So I don't even bother to take mine out. It's a nylon plug, it's not going to rust in there. If you have a different style hot water heater, you may very well have an anode rod on yours that's attached to that plug. You may want to pull it out and inspect it, see if it needs to be replaced. Probably a good time to do that once the tank's empty, but that's completely up to you. So I'm just showing you guys. So I've taken the caps off, got a little bit of water out of the cold, a little bit of water out of the hot, but it's pretty much stopped. I know there's 6 gallons in there, so and there's definitely 6 gallons didn't come out. So I'm going to come over here, flip this switch up. I can hear air going in the tank. And what you're going to see is that the water will start coming out. Actually, the cold side, because that's on the bottom of the tank. And so this is the only way you're going to get all 6 gallons out of that tank without pulling that nylon plug. The next thing we're going to want to look for is our city water port. This is where you actually hook up water when you're camping. And on mine, it's right here on this side, both city water and to fill the tank. Another question a lot of people ask is, where's my water pump? I don't know where it is. Usually you can flip it on and listen for it and try to figure out where it is that way. Don't worry, these pumps are made to run dry. You will not burn it out by doing that. You can run it as long as you need to figure out where it's at. But usually they're very, very close on the inside to where this is. And seeing as how this is the bedroom or the window for our front bedroom, I'm guessing, well, I know, but I would guess that the water pump is right inside under this window somewhere. I just have to know on mine there's a nightstand there, and in that nightstand there's a few screws on top. You take it off and sure enough the pump is sitting in there right inside the wall here. So that'll help you identify where your pump is potentially. Alright, so while I'm waiting for the water to drain out of the low point drains, which can take a while, it'll take a good 5 to 10 minutes, surprisingly, to get all 6 gallons back out, I'm going to winterize the black tank flush valve. If your camper has one of these, it's critical that you do not forget this guy. Sunlight's a little weird out here, so hopefully this comes out okay. But this is my black tank flush valve. There's only one special tool you need for this entire winterizing job if you have a black tank flush valve, and that is this hand pump. I think this is a Campco, probably 10 bucks or so. Very cheap, but you have to have this. There is water that will sit in your black tank flush valve throughout the winter, and a lot of people forget this. They come back in the spring and the check valve is cracked, and when they go to use their black tank flush valve, they end up with water all inside their camper. Not a good scene. So what you want to do is basically get one of these. You thread it in just like you would a hose, really simple. You're then going to just put the other end of the hose in your gallon of antifreeze and just pump it a few times. Put maybe, I don't know, a quarter of that gallon at the most through. That'll ensure that you've got all the water out of the check valve and a little bit into the tank. You don't need to worry so much about the tank. That's a big open surface, but you definitely want to make sure the lines going down to the tank have some pink in them. So I'm going to do this right now while I'm still waiting for those low point drain to finish up. I can't show you this. It takes a couple hands to hold the jug and run the pump at the same time, so I'm going to stop the recording for this, but I think you get it's pretty self-explanatory. Alright, so that's done. You can see I used well, you can see that, but a little less than a quarter of a gallon of this stuff. Not too bad. It does make a little bit of a mess. You get some on the ground. This stuff's non-toxic, so not too much to worry about there. So it sounds like my low point drains have possibly finished up, so I can put the caps back on those. Still coming out a little bit. See, this has been a good 5 minutes. I'm still getting water out of there. It takes a while. As soon as that stops dripping, I'm going to put the caps back on there so I don't forget, because otherwise when I go to put antifreeze in the system, it's just going to all run out the low point. So you definitely don't want to make sure you do that. Put the caps on, close the air release, the pressure release valve, and we're good to go to move inside and finish this up. Alright, caps have been put back on. Finally came to a slow drip. I pulled out the outside kitchen faucet because I need to make sure I don't forget that guy. Going to come over here, flip down this guy so I don't forget him. Now really we're all done out here, so we can go ahead and close this panel back up. And forget about it. We're done. You can see I'm going with 3 gallons of antifreeze for this job. Some people will say, oh, it only takes 1.5 gallons. I don't want to buy any more antifreeze than I have to. I like to pump a lot through the system and make sure the traps and lines are completely full. I paid $12 for these 3 gallons, so pretty cheap insurance to make sure that it's done right. Yeah, I probably could get away with 2, but I want those traps full. I want to make sure that I've got plenty to run at each sink, or if something happens and I lose a little bit, whatever, I know I've got plenty. You know, you run one sink long, next thing you know you get to the bathroom all the way in the back and you barely got any left to run, and you potentially don't have enough in the traps to prevent them from freezing. So just get 3 gallons. If you've got a really big camper with maybe 2 bathrooms and a kitchen up front, where you got long runs of lines, you may need 4. I don't know. For me, I found that 3 works. It's plenty, and so it's just what I go with. Now we're going to step on inside, and I'll show you how to access the pump and the water heater on my camper. Like I said, yours will be similar, just inside for maybe a different location, but you shouldn't have too much of a time finding them and accessing them. All right, we're inside. I apologize, the camper's a little messy. We used it a few weeks ago, towed it home. It's been sitting in the driveway. We really haven't got in to clean it out yet for the end of the season, so things are a bit of a mess, but that's okay. We'll get to that. I just want to get it winterized now in case we get some low temperatures and things get close to freezing. I don't want to have to worry about it, so I'm going to winterize it and we'll clean it and throw it in storage later. Like I said, certainly not my favorite time of the season. As I pointed out outside, my hot water heater outside access panel is actually right outside the wall there. And so that means my hot water heater is most likely right here under the stove. And I don't know how well this is going to show up. It's kind of dark down here. But basically there's a panel right here and there's a couple screws. I'm going to take those out and see what's behind it. And so with the panel removed, you can see there is my hot water heater. Just a quick note for all of you who are fairly new to camping, you may not know this. Get yourself a toolkit. These things aren't that expensive. This one has clamps and screwdrivers and all kinds of stuff that you will be surprised how often you need to use some of this stuff when you have a travel trailer. So make sure you go pick up one of these. They're a must-have as far as I'm concerned. It should be one of the first purchases you make after you leave it right in your storage compartment. You've always got tools if needed. In the case of these doors right here, the access panels, they're actually held on with little Torx screws. You don't need to worry about having a Torx, but if you do, great. They're not in there by much, so a regular Phillips screwdriver will usually take them right out. I actually leave mine off all winter so that I don't forget to flip the de-winterizing valve, the right term, in the spring, because the last thing I want to do is fire up my water heater and not actually have any water in it. That's really, really bad. So make sure that you have a way to remind yourself in the spring to flip this valve back. If you're buying a new camper, it probably came with this valve flipped in the winterizing mode, and you need to get in here and make sure it's flipped before you actually fire up the water heater for the first time. You can see in mine I actually have some sticky rodent traps down in the bottom. I recommend whenever you winterize and store your camper for the winter, the glue boards like this or snap traps, whatever you want to use, make sure you've got plenty of them scattered throughout your camper. You never know, rodents get in. I had my last trailer, they did quite a number on some wiring and some other stuff that caused me a bunch of headaches in the spring. Now I put these glue boards throughout what I store just to make sure that I don't have any surprises in the spring. Hopefully, if I do, it's dead rodents. Haven't had any in this one so far, but better safe than sorry. So all we're going to do here is put this tank from normal operation to bypassed. And basically all that means is normally cold water comes in the bottom, goes into the tank, gets heated, and comes out the red pipe at the top. What we want to do is we don't want to fill the tank full of antifreeze. So we're going to take this little valve down here and we're going to flip it 90 degrees. And what that's going to do is the antifreeze comes in the blue line at the bottom. It's going to go up through this blue line and then back through the red lines out to the sink. Keeps the tank from being full of antifreeze, which is a pain to rinse out if that happens. I had the previous owner of my old trailer do that, and it took hours to rinse it all out before the faucet stopped foaming. So make sure you bypass it. What little bit of water may be left in the hot water tank is no big deal. There's plenty of room for it to expand. It will not hurt anything if there's a little bit of water in the bottom, so don't worry about that. Just flip this valve and we're good to go. Like I said, just make sure in the spring you flip her back like that. That's all it takes. Tank is now bypassed. Now we go find the water pump. So like I mentioned outside, the city water inlet port is right here by the bedroom window, which makes me think, well, I know, but if I didn't know, it would make me think that my water pump is probably in the bedroom right by the nightstand. And so lo and behold, there's some screws here in this panel. There's usually some screws under here too, but you have to lift the mattress up to get to it. It really stinks. I actually don't put those back in anymore because they're such a pain to lift the mattress and get at, that after the first season I said, you know what, I'm just going to put these three screws back in. It's not like they do anything other than hold this little flimsy panel on, so I leave them out so that now I don't have to worry about lifting up the mattress. I can simply pull this panel out, put it on the bed, and then there's the pump. Now when you get your camper, they don't provide a winterizing option on the pump. right from the factory, unfortunately. You have to buy a kit to do it, which is kind of a bummer, since they could do it easily while they're in here the first time. You could use the hand pump outside and pump through the city connection, but that requires 2 people. 1 person outside pumping, 1 person inside opening faucets. That stinks. I don't like that solution at all. So instead, what I didn't buy the winterizing kit where you can simply, it's a T and you can flip a couple valves to go from pumping out of a bottle to pumping out of, you know, the tank itself. I just did something a little simpler. I'm actually going to pause for a second here and see if I can get some light down in there to make it a little easier to see. Unfortunately, when they deliver these things, they don't put a winterizing kit on them, so you are going to have to either buy a winterizing kit, which is it's a T that you put in this line here that goes down to the tank to allow you to suck out of a jug, or you can do the simple route I did because I was in a hurry the first year and didn't have a kit access. I went to the hardware store. I literally just bought some hose clamps and a barb fitting and an extra piece of pipe. And so what I'm going to do is disconnect the barb with the hose clamps and hook it on to this piece of pipe to extend it so I can reach into a jug, you know, over here, and flip on the pump and have it suck out of the jug. And when I'm done, I simply then reconnect the hose down to the tank. Some people will say, well, gee, why can't you just put antifreeze straight in the freshwater tank and pump it out? You can. The problem with that is once you get that antifreeze down in the freshwater tank, there's no good way. You certainly can't pump it all out. And so the only good way to get it out in the spring is you put water in the tank, you open the low point drain, you wait for it to drain out, you then put more water in, you drain it out, you put more water. It takes forever to rinse out. I don't recommend you do that. It leaves too much antifreeze. You'll be tasting antifreeze in your freshwater tank if you use it all summer. I don't even use my freshwater tank. I don't want to mess with that. I just don't want to put anything in the tank that shouldn't be there. So I'm going to disconnect this, hook on the hose, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. All right, so here it is. I've disconnected the hose going down to the tank. Left that over there. Move the barb to this hose right here, which I will now just put into a jug in here. And we're ready to fire the pump up and open some faucets and start pumping the antifreeze through the system. When I'm done, I'll simply put this connection back together and it's good to go. I don't even use my fresh tank. I could probably leave it like this, but in the odd event that sometime I get stuck at a campground and need to use it, I want to make sure it's hooked up without having to mess with it. So I will put it back when I'm done. Okay, so we now have the hose down in the jug, hooked up to the pump, and we are ready to fire this bad boy up. So we'll come over here, find our water switch. You hear the pump come on. I should make sure I shut all the outlets before we get too far along into this. Okay, all the outlets are shut. Apologize for the shaky cam. I'm going to now open these one at a time. Let's see, this will be all water for a bit. Look at all that water. It's still in the line, even though we opened the low point drain. A lot of noise. Now it's starting to turn pink. So I get a nice solid stream of pink. Go ahead, turn that guy off. Come to the other side. Not quite enough water on that side. Nope, see there? All water again. Let this run. Stop that guy right there. Check on our jug. Jug's looking pretty good. Getting down there a little bit. Alright, now I'm back in the bathroom. I'm going to open up this guy. This is all the way back to the camper, so I expect quite a bit of water to come out from here. I'm going to have to swap that jug out. There we go. So get some pink. It's not like when you fire up, you don't have to have all of the air out of the lines. The air won't freeze. Make sure you have your water. See all that water? What I'm going to have happen now, though, is I'm going to have a bunch of water down in the trap. Then we're going to have to make sure we've got plenty of heat down in there just to make sure that it displaces any of that water. There we go, nice and pink. This guy is done. Let it run for a minute just to make sure we got plenty in. We'll go check that jug. It's probably time to change it. Back in the bathroom, we make sure we don't want to forget the toilet. So leave a little bit in the bottom of that guy. As you can see, I disconnect the shower head. I don't need to run water or antifreeze all the way through that, so I disconnect that. And now we'll just make sure we run plenty of pink here. I did switch the jug. This is an all-new jug. Don't worry about the pink. It'll stain the tub a little bit temporarily, but the first time in the spring you run it, it'll rinse it right out. You can see because I ran the sink over there, which goes past this, I'm really not getting much water out of this part, but that's good. Oops, I hate these backwards faucets. So that should be plenty to get in that trap. I do want to run the sink a little bit more. I had a lot of water right at the end of that jug. I want to make sure that there's nothing but pink down in this trap. Occasionally you'll do this and you'll see more water come out. It's like, where is that water hiding? But it can happen. That should be plenty. Go run the kitchen sink some more. Like I said, I like to just keep doing this. Antifreeze is cheap. Why chance it? The sound of the pump, I'm running low in that jug too. Almost another gallon down. And yep, that gallon is kicked too. See, so I've done the couple faucets, and I've been through 2 gallons. Yeah, I probably could have done a gallon and a half, but I like knowing I got plenty down in those traps. I'm actually going to take, I can't get everything all the way to the bottom, so I'll take the last of this jug and just pour it straight in the traps. Better safe than sorry in my book. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually almost forgot the outside shower. A rookie mistake on my part. As you can see, there's water in there. Now it's pink. The other side. Ooh. Water. Water, water, water. Pink. I'm running out. Almost a rookie mistake on my part, and I've been doing this for 5 years. That's it. That's all it takes for the outside shower. Don't forget it. I never use mine, hence why I almost forgot about it. The last thing for me to get is this outside kitchen. Come out here. Can't forget this guy. I'm just going to turn it on. I usually get a bath when I do this because of the air pressure. Open it real slow. I did swap out. I'm to into my 3rd gallon now. This guy we don't have a trap to worry about, so pretty much once we start seeing pink at the faucet, we're good. Just like that. Every year. That's good and pink. We're done there. I'll go dump that in the bushes. Again, it's non-toxic. Won't hurt anything. Yeah, I could dump it down a drain, but whatever. Since I have a minute, I want to talk about using air to blow out your lines. There are a lot of people who use this method, swear by it, so they've used it for decades. centuries. You know, I've been doing it that way for 100 years. You know, I never had a problem. Hook an air compressor up to the outside with a fitting, blow the lines out. That's, yeah, it works. I have an issue with it here in the places where we actually get real winters. And the reason I don't like it is because air is much, much less dense than water. So you hook your air compressor up, you start pushing air in, you open the faucet. Sure, you're going to get water that comes out because the air will be able to push on that column of water and push it down the drain. The problem is as that column of water gets lighter, the air being less dense is going to tend to want to just go around it, especially in the places like up to the sinks where you have to go around corners and then straight up. That air is going to push around the water column, and you're going to get all the air at the faucet, and you're going to say, oh great, all the water's out. Well, all the water is not out. The air is just going around it as the water travels back down the pipe. So then what you end up with is you disconnect your air compressor. You've now got water in the lowest points of the system potentially, where the air just won't blow it up. It can't. It's not dense enough. So for that reason, I don't like it, because you can definitely leave plenty of water in the lines that could then sit and freeze in the elbows, especially in the lower parts where you can't see it in here probably, but there's areas where these lines make a lot of 90-degree bends, and you just will not blow all the water out of those. Antifreeze, however, on the other side is it's liquid, it's dense, so it's going to push water. You can't leave any water behind. And what little bit of water might get left behind is now mixed with the antifreeze to become a slush when it gets freezing, and it'll actually turn slushy. It will not prevent water from freezing entirely. It just makes it slushy and makes it so that it can't expand and actually burst the pipes. For that reason, I prefer antifreeze. Yeah, there's a little bit of expense to it. There's a little bit of a method to it, but I just don't trust the air solution. Yes, if you live down where it doesn't get freezing very often, you might be okay. Here in the Northeast, we get real winters where it can be sub-zero for weeks on end, and I just want to make sure that I don't have any water in my lines. So all I'm going to do now, basically, is just continue to open lines till I burn through this last gallon. At this point, there's no doubt that I have all the water out of the lines and plenty of antifreeze in the traps. I should have nothing to worry about and no surprises in the spring when I hook back up to the city water and pray that I don't have any burst pipes, because I've done a thorough job at making sure that we have pink everywhere. And that's pretty much it. I'll reconnect that line, put the cover back on by the bed, and I'm done. That's it. I'm good to clean up the rest of the camper and throw it into storage. There's nothing else I need to worry about. Any little water that's left in the tanks is certainly not going to be an issue. We're done. So as you can see, it's a really simple process. If you're even remotely handy, you should have no problem doing this yourself. Why pay a dealership or somebody a couple $100s to do this? I had $13 invested and a half hour of my time, so at the most. If I wasn't shooting a video, I probably could do it in 15 minutes, except for waiting for the fresh water, the water to drain out of the low points. But it's simple, so I encourage you guys to give it a try. Thanks.